got plenty of storage. It's bigger than you think it is. There's something about this car that doesn't feel small. Hyundai Inster. Have a look at it. Look how fantastic this little electric car looks. And I have been looking forward to driving this for quite some time for a very good reason. If you go to Italy, the most common thing you see on the road is a Fiat Panda. And that's because it is small, it's compact, it's clever, it's a bit of a TARDIS, it's got more room inside than you think it does, very practical, efficient to run, and in Italy, they're smart enough to use these micro cars, I guess you could call them, as family transport. And the more I look at the Hyundai Inster, the more I think this is a Fiat Panda for Australian roads, but with all of the things that you get when you buy a Hyundai, because of course the Fiat Panda is a little bit rudimentary, a bit old school. This thing feels anything but. I also think that at this price point, starting just under 40,000 bucks, full EV, with all of the signature Hyundai attention to detail, this is probably the sort of car that will get Australians thinking about an EV if they may have been otherwise skeptical. Hyundai Inster starts under 40,000 bucks. Let's have a look at the inside.
Prices start from $39,000 before on-road costs for the 327 kilometre range standard range model, or approximately $42,000 drive away. The Inster extended range is priced from $42,500 before on-road costs, while the Cross is $45,000 before on-road costs, with either a sunroof or a roof basket. Standard features across the range include LED headlights, dual 10.25-inch interior displays, keyless entry and start, wireless phone charging, a suite of safety features, and sliding rear seats that vary boot space from 280 litres to 351 litres. Powering the standard range is a 71.1 kilowatt, 147 newton metre front electric motor and 42 kilowatt hour battery pack. Good for a claimed 327 kilometres of driving in the European WLTP testing, and it runs from 0 to 100 kilometres an hour in just 11.7 seconds. The extended range adds a 49 kilowatt hour battery, also with nickel manganese cobalt chemistry, and an 84.5 kilowatt, 147 newton metre motor for 360 kilometres of combined range. It's a little bit faster to 100 kilometres an hour. Hyundai claims a 30-minute, 10 to 80% fast charging time, up to 85.3 kilowatts, but a 120 kilowatt charger is needed to achieve that, as anything less cannot supply enough current to account for the Inster's low battery voltages. AC charging at up to 10.5 kilowatts is offered through an onboard charger for empty to full charge times on a 16 amp plug of 4 hours and 4 hours and 35 minutes for the two battery packs. Keep in mind, that's the sort of charging that you'll have at home.
One of the smartest things about the Hyundai Inster is right here inside the cabin, and in fact this one, in this particular trim grade with the darker cabin, is the least exciting of the lot, but it's still really well laid out. I do like the fact that you can get really bright and different interior colours. I think these small cars need to have a bit of character, and I think you can do that by giving them a little bit of personality inside the cabin. But in terms of the way this is put together and the ergonomics, it is a very, very clever car. It's got plenty of storage. It's bigger than you think it is. It's got more room than you expect when you look at it from the outside. Wireless charging, big screens, infotainment that works, signature Hyundai fit finish, attention to detail, the switch gear, steering wheel controls, all of those things, they look familiar if you've ever driven any kind of Hyundai. And one thing I do like about it, beyond all those other factors, is that Hyundai hasn't made it look silly just because it's an electric vehicle. This all looks very much like a regular Hyundai in here, which I quite like. I do think people are going to have great fun customizing these, whether it's via Hyundai or the aftermarket eventually. They've got a real personality that you can bring out if you customize it a little bit. But in the truest sense of a really smart small car, this has got more room and it's more comfortable than you ever would have expected by looking at it from the outside. Now it's time to take it for a drive. City-focused cars, whether they're electric or otherwise, need to do a couple of things. They need to be manoeuvrable, easy to drive, practical, obviously, and they need to feel compact in the way that they move around. Now, that might sound like a strange thing to say because it's a compact car, but not all small cars feel small. The steering in the Insta is great. The maneuverability is fantastic, and this is a really, really easy little car to drive around. And I think that's important because the buyer that this car is focused toward will live and operate largely in the city. Now, that's not to say that it won't work well once you get out on the open road. We've spent some time in 80 and 100 kilometre an hour zones during this launch drive. And we haven't too closely looked at consumption because it's hard to control that when you're on a launch drive. So we'll look at that closer when we get the Insta through the garage. But in terms of how it deals with 80 and 100 kilometre an hour zones, it's fantastic, no problem there. The ride is good. It's firm, like a lot of electric vehicles are. You know that this is an EV, but it's not uncomfortable. The way it deals with potholes and coarse surfaces is pretty good. And the general sense of comfort in here is excellent as well. I think there's a real concern for a lot of people that when you, and this might sound funny, but when you buy a small car, it's going to feel like it's really small. And the Insta doesn't do that. There's something about the design, the headroom, the glass area, the amount of light that comes in, the pillars aren't too thick. There's something about this car that doesn't feel small, which I think is really important because you're obviously going to spend a lot of time in your car. You want to feel like there's plenty of room. And this has a surprising amount of space, despite how diminutive the exterior size of it is. All in all, even though it's city focused, this is a really, really good little electric car. Now, I love small cars. I think they make incredible sense for those of us who live in the city. The fact that this is electric, I think appeals to buyers in a slightly different way, because if you have a second car, if you live primarily in the city, if you drive primarily in the city, this is the kind of car that you should be looking at. But I've got a crucial question for you. At this price point, around that $40,000 mark, and the fact that this is a fully electric Hyundai, is this the price point? Is this the kind of car that gets you thinking about electric vehicles if you're a little bit skeptical about them and otherwise might not have wanted to buy one? Don't forget to hit like if you've enjoyed the video. Click on subscribe so you stay up to date with all of our latest video content, and the full review of the Hyundai Inster, that's over at Drive.com.au.